Well, we saw the visuals yesterday, hundreds of voters turning out to cast their ballots in New York as the overseas vote in South Africa's national election proceeded with not too many obstacles. Voters could select from 48 parties on the ballot paper for inclusion in the national vote count. Shaun Bryce Peace was there.
A long day for voting officials here in New York. This polling station opening at 7 a.m. and remaining open until 11:30 p.m. Saturday night to allow for those voters who observed the Sabbath to come through and cast their ballots once the sun has set. Some new young voters in the mix, those who have done it before, but all expressing the importance of honouring their civic duty as South Africans. Among those to cast their ballot, South Africa's ambassador to the United Nations and his spouse, Flo.
It's a day that I think we should cherish, we should protect. It's a day that opens up opportunities for all of us, freedom, fundamental freedoms, for South Africans to work together.
Some voters didn't find their names on the voters list because they did not complete the VEC10 form required for all registered voters to indicate their intention to vote abroad. Others were concerned about placing their ballot papers already in an unmarked envelope into a second envelope with their names and IDs included on it.
This is the process that the IEC has. Envelope A with their ballot has no identifying information, and we're quite comfortable that their vote will remain a secret.
Many voters recognizing the historic nature of the vote in South Africa and embracing their civic duty, even thousands of kilometers away from home.
I've realized that I cannot remove politics from my everyday living. You know, it affects everything. It affects the economy.
I feel confident about where we're going right now. And I know that many of my friends and family who live in South Africa feel that way too.
Well, just we need to give the President, Mr. Ramaphosa, a fresh mandate, to deal with all these challenges that we have.
I just want, human beings to be looked after. Doesn't matter black or white, but I look for people to have a better life.
All sealed ballot papers will be emptied into a secure courier bag under the watchful eye of party agents before being shipped to Pretoria to IEC headquarters for inclusion in the national count. Shaun Bryce Peace, SABC News, New York.
Meanwhile, hundreds of South Africans across America cast their ballots ahead of next month's elections. Voting took place in Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. Kate Fisher reports from the embassy in Washington, D.C.
This is one of 4 locations in the United States where South Africans can come to vote. 360 people are registered to vote here at the embassy in Washington. And the Chargé d'Affaires says she believes it's really important that South Africans living abroad can still have a say in who represents them.
All embassies across the globe are facilitating the voting today, which is the 6th one after our first democracy in 1994. So we are excited that at least all the South African diaspora are able to exercise their rights that has been fought for by our forefathers.
And on Freedom Day, South Africans voting here say it's as important as ever.
I just had to vote. I wouldn't have missed today. I couldn't even believe that there are 48 parties to vote for. In 1994, I only had to choose one between 3. One of 3 or one of 5. But today, 48. Are you kidding me? I even counted. But I'm a proud voter.
I think it was just very important for me because I might be here, but all my family's back home and they probably won't ever get a chance to come over, and just to make sure that South Africa is still a safe place for all of them and just to make it better for all of them.
For over 20 years I've been living outside of South Africa, and as much as I'd love to be back in South Africa, being able to vote abroad is a lot more convenient than having to fly back to South Africa to vote.
The presiding officer says the process has been smooth.
Our role is to oversee if people are here to exercise their democratic right, and it's very important for us to be here.
Once voting ends at 7 p.m. local time, the ballots will be collected, sealed and sent back to Pretoria for counting. Kate Fisher, SABC News, Washington.
South Africans abroad have cast their votes, which coincided with Freedom Day. Almost 30,000 worldwide registered. Our reporter Holly Hudson was in London.
More South Africans marked their ballot in London than any other overseas country, with over 9,000 registered here in total. But efforts by the Electoral Commission to make the process easier, including putting on extra staff from Pretoria, were felt.
The lines are going great, they're going smooth, everybody's, excited to be here. It's really, really great, really organised. The IEC's done a great job.
South Africa's new High Commissioner to the UK was also happy with the vote, her first since being appointed, and paid tribute to those who had made the journey.
It's an expensive expedition to come and vote, because very often, people, the trains are not cheap in London. And then if you're coming from so far with your children, I think it's quite a challenge.
This time round, there were 48 parties on the ballot paper, but in London, just 2 stood out as having the strongest support.
People are really enthusiastic about the DA. A lot of them have said to us it's the only choice, but obviously for us it's the best choice for our country.
People are still willing to make the necessary changes that the country desires, and they are very, very hopeful of a very democratic, transparent and reliable government that will actually serve the interests of the people of South Africa.
Over the coming week, the ballots from London will be collected, sealed and sent back to South Africa to be counted in 10 days' time.
Holly Hudson, SABC News, London.
Around 800 South Africans in Germany were expected to cast their ballots. The SABC's Ira Spitzer reports from the South African Embassy in Berlin.
They're a long way from home, but these South Africans in Germany are exercising their right to vote. 25 years to the day after South Africa's first democratic elections in 1994.
People are still as enthusiastic about the democracy as they were then. So this is very positive for us and a very positive message to the world.
More than 800 South Africans have signed up to cast their ballots in Germany. South Africans living in Germany can either vote here at the embassy in the nation's capital or in the southern German city of Munich. Many traveled several hours for the chance to take part in these elections.
I came from the Harz Mountains, close to Quedlinburg, and I take it onto me to come by train, and I also stayed overnight to make sure that I'm on time here for voting.
For me, it's a really important thing to vote. Apparently, I was a year old when my mom voted for the first time in 1994. So since then, she's been telling me how privileged we are to have the right to vote.
Overseas voters vote in national, but not the provincial elections. While many have been in Germany for years, they're largely focused on the same issues as voters back home, like the economy.
I would like to see change in South Africa. I would like to see people living a better lifestyle, also having jobs.
After the polls close here, the ballots are sent to South Africa to be counted there after domestic voters head to the polls on the 8th of May. Ira Spitzer, SABC News, Berlin.
In Kenya, polls opened at 7 in the morning yesterday. Those registered to vote termed the exercise historic and hassle-free. Close to 100 South Africans living in Kenya are registered to vote. Saraki Mani reported on this.
One by one, and sometimes as families, they streamed into the South African High Commission to exercise their democratic right. On hand to receive them, diplomatic staff, this time acting as the electoral officials. For some, this was the first time voting abroad.
First time indeed, yes. And
how does it feel?
Enjoying it. At least I can practice my civil duty, so I'm quite happy.
I've never voted before. It's very exciting.
This is the second time. We actually voted in Accra last time, and now we're doing it here.
But even for those who have done it before, Saturday's vote held special significance.
It is a quarter of a century since we gained freedom, and it is Freedom Day. So actually, it's just everything's coming together. So that's why I'm excited.
There are few who get this opportunity, and especially with a history such as ours, it's indeed a special day.
I say that at least inside there's still a spirit of being together and all the South Africans and stuff. Different not standing in a queue, which is great as well. But yeah, it was a very, very nice experience.
Polls were expected to close at 7 p.m. or once all those registered to vote had cast their ballots. Overseas voters are allowed to vote in the national elections, but not in the provincial elections. Here in Nairobi, just over 100 people are registered to vote in this year's elections. Sarah Kimani, SABC News at the South African High Commission in Nairobi, Kenya.
The Electoral Commission has expressed satisfaction with the way voting progressed abroad. Around 30,000 South Africans living abroad cast their votes as South Africa marked Freedom Day yesterday, hoping to make a difference in the 2019 general election. The IEC head, Mababolo, says the vote of those living abroad will still be in secret despite concerns about their ballots being placed in 2 envelopes, one blank and the second with their names, ID numbers and voting districts included on it.
The double envelope system is meant to ensure, firstly, the integrity of the process because it allows for verification procedures. And secondly, once the verification procedures are undertaken, the outer envelope is removed and the envelope with no personal details of the voter are then mixed up with the general votes cast. So in that way, the secrecy of the voter is maintained. It is the same principle that we use for special votes in South Africa. So on the 6th and on the 7th of May, those who are going to, those who have applied for special votes will be using the double envelope system for the same reasons.
I think looking back, there was once quite a debate about this. I think now most people accept that voters abroad can vote. But just tell me, from the IEC's perspective, we go through a lot of trouble to let a few thousand South Africans vote. Why is this so important?
No, it is important because voting in one's country's election, it's a expression of one's citizenship. It's expression of the nationhood that you are part of. So, even as these compatriots are far in many different parts of the world, they still have historical connections with the country. They have a political connection with the country, and they need to be catered for. And as a commission, we're happy that we've been able to accord them this opportunity.
Even if 30,000 votes doesn't make a huge material difference to the election anyway.
Every vote counts in a proportional representation system. So I'm sure for those parties who have done campaigning at these various missions, they'll benefit from the number of votes that are cast today.
And the date chosen, is it significant, Freedom Day?
Indeed, a very overriding consideration was to do it on a day as special as Freedom Day, because this is a day when all of us became one in terms of the political rights that we held. We were on the same queues on April 27 in 1994 to express our own citizenships as equal. So it was a very historically connected choice that the Commission made to allow South Africans this opportunity on this day. Hence, it's not just about the act of voting, it's celebrating this day. And you would see in many parts of the world that after voting, people in fact had plans to celebrate it together as people of the same country.
All right, so all the focus moves locally now. This week, the IEC will be launching the Rock in Pretoria. We're going to be reporting from there. That's a sort of results hub. Just tell us what sort of activity will be happening at the Rock.
The Rock is the mainstay of our transparency processes in the electoral process. We will have close to 500 media personnel who will be reporting for the whole world how the electoral process will be unfolding from the Rock. We will be having representatives of all political parties, 48 of them who are participating in these elections. We will have all the commissioners of the IEC on site. We will also have our own officials who will be managing the electoral process. But the Rock is also a display. It's a spectacle of transparency, how elections in this country are run together with all major stakeholders. The media on the one hand, political parties, the commission, officials of the commission and so on, all under one roof. If difficulties arise, we are in one roof to deal with them. And we'll have consistent media briefings from the Rock. We'll have time to time party liaison committees where we will be briefing political parties about how the process is unfolding. So it's a major facility that helps us to coordinate that entirety of the electoral process.
I've been before. There's an incredible buzz that happens around election time. Okay, we're just days away. Final question, are you feeling ready?
Well, we are getting ready, and we are confident that the work that has been put over the past 24 months is now coming to fruition. And on the 8th, we urge South Africans to come in their numbers, and they will find our officials well-trained, confident, and capable of making them vote in a very efficient manner.
The IEC Chief Electoral Officer, Mababolo.